is my second video with comments on performing Osborne's Rhapsody. This is part 2, and I'm Terry Ewell, introducing some of this music to you. The term a tempo is employed in a consistent fashion by Osborne. A tempo means to start again in the tempo previously indicated with metronome markings or Italian tempo markings. In 2 instances in the Peters edition, the term a tempo is linked with a metronome marking in parentheses. For instance, here in measure 9, we have a tempo given with quarter note equals 80, and this was provided earlier in measure 5. Now, this is the exception to the rule when you see a numeric tempo given with a tempo. Elsewhere, you'll just typically find a tempo by itself. Interestingly enough, the study provides further evidence for Osborne's consistent treatment of the term a tempo. Measure 40 of the Rhapsody contains a tempo but no metronomic marking. Here, however, in the study, in measure 40, we have quarter note equals 92. I realize it's a little hard to see here. The copy is not very good, but this also says quarter note equals 92. So we have no a tempo given here in the study. Instead, we just have the metronomic marking. Here is the Rhapsody with the same passage. We've got the quarter note equals 92, but here we find in measure 40 a tempo without the number. So clearly a tempo means 92 here and in these prior segments in the Rhapsody, and in fact throughout the Rhapsody. You look for the earlier metronomic number that has been given as part of that. Now it's time to look at a few suggestions for fingerings. There are some difficult places in the Rhapsody, and for bassoonists we can help ourselves by employing certain fingerings. The slur from E flat 4 to A flat 3 is quite awkward, and often this A flat 3 doesn't come out. What I suggest is that you, instead of using the whisper key here, instead you put down the A key. Typically I will probably close this entire hole, but you can leave it as a half hole if you wish. And I will hold that key down for the full duration of this note because it's very quick. This is a technique called flicking, and we'll see in our next one another illustration of that technique. Here a little bit further in the piece, in going into measure 15, you find G4 slurred to E flat 4. And again, this E flat does not want to come out. That's partially because at the F, this is F above open F, it acts a little bit like a break similar to open F. There's a great change in embouchure, and there's sort of a registral shift that happens in an interesting manner there. And so as a consequence, it's very difficult to slur over that little break. So my suggestion is that you flick the C sharp key. Finger your normal E flat, flick the C sharp key. Now by flicking, I mean venting or briefly holding down this key at the start of the note. I probably wouldn't hold that key down for the entire note, rather just when the note comes out, and then I would release it. In the USA, we commonly call this technique flicking. Now here's an instance where I want to remind you about a very important breath. This is not marked in the music, but I encourage you to do so. Measure 24, you need to take a good breath at this place so that you can continue on with the section following it, including this very, very sudden change to piano in measure 26. Notice the very large dynamic contrast I'm able to make here. I achieve the drama of the piano marking here not only through a change in volume, but also with a slight delay of the downbeat of 26. I think you'll find this is very effective. Here is my performance of this passage. Now, the first cadenza must convey passion and excitement. It is not as fervent as the second cadenza, but it still must be played with fluid technique and a quicker pace. In measure 34, you find some very awkward notes here, and the transition between F4 and G flat 4 can be quite awkward. You might want to try using the trill fingering to facilitate this. You play your standard F4 fingering, lift this finger to achieve an F sharp. However, when I play the passage, I play it just as written, using my standard F sharp 4 fingering here. So here's my performance of this first cadenza. I suggest using the whisper key lock in measure 37 after the low D. The symbol for whisper key lock is a circle with an X in it. The symbol for releasing the lock is an open circle with no X. You may be asking, just what is a whisper key lock? Well, let me give you a few examples of that. Here is the standard whisper key lock mechanism available on many bassoons. This is the boot joint, and this up here is the tenor joint. You engage the whisper key lock by pushing this mechanism upward with generally the right forefinger. Here we have the whisper key lock engaged on that standard bassoon, and you can see it's been pushed all the way up and it's pushing this key off. Now, my bassoon has a different whisper key lock mechanism. My whisper key has a spring and a way of engaging it so that it will lock simply by pushing with my thumb here. Notice there's no gap here. The whisper key is not yet engaged. But now you can see a gap here in this position as I've locked this whisper key and in order to bring about this passage. Now, before the recapitulation, in measures 40 to 42, there's a passage that should be played with hesitation. That's the translation of the term here. I think I should have done more than what I present here. For a moment, the performer should sound lost or disoriented or perhaps even confused, that you don't quite know where the music is going, and then when you come to the recapitulation in measure 43, suddenly we have a point of arrival. So here I'm playing a little bit of measure 40 going into the recapitulation.